Do you have any idea how common the MTHFR problem is? I mean, how many people out there can't methylate B vitamins?
So their estimation is that a third of the population have the MTHFR variant.
A third.
A third.
It seems extremely high.
But then it's kind of no wonder that we're facing this mental health crisis, right?
Right.
If a third of the population are walking around with a dodgy gene that may or may not be expressing itself. So if it's not expressing itself, you're not going to have any symptoms. So that's all good.
Right.
By virtue of having that variant doesn't mean that you're going to suffer. But for those of us who do have that variant that's been switched on, that's expressing itself, that's how it showed up in me. So there's a third of the population who are either experiencing symptoms of the gene variant or have it that may switch itself on at any point. And so if there was one thing I could achieve before I die, it would be having every single child that was born delivered to its parent with itself and its genome, its DNA. Like, it costs $100. Give the parents a DNA with their child, because if I'd have known about this defect, this genetic mutation when I was a kid, my entire life would have been completely different.
Right. Wow.
And all that it took, actually it took two things, but one of the things it took was B vitamin. Are you kidding me? Like, I had this life of hell over B vitamins. But the other part to the story is that around the same time as I started looking at my DNA, I bumped into a doctor on Twitter who is quite famous in the keto world now. It's Dr. Ted Naiman. And it turns out his office was about 11 miles away from me in Seattle, Washington, when I lived there. And I got chatting to Ted on Twitter, and he heard that I had bipolar, and he said, I think I can help you. So I went to see him, and he was the one that put me on the ketogenic diet. And his reasoning was that the ketogenic diet was originally developed and shown to be incredibly effective at treating, either completely eradicating or reducing seizures in children. And because I was on lamotrigine, which is actually an anti-seizure medication, it made sense to him that the ketogenic diet may also help me, since that was what was helping to keep me stable, was an anti-seizure medication. It may be that a ketogenic diet would help me in much the same way as it helped children with seizures. So around the same time as I was doing the DNA testing and figuring out that I had the MTHFR gene variant, Ted Naiman also put me on a ketogenic diet. So it was actually, I was put on a therapeutic keto diet I was on that for 6 weeks. And then I figured out with my naturopath about the MTHFR gene variant, and we got me onto pre-methylated supplements. So I was actually getting the B vitamins I needed. There was a bunch of other problems too. I had a whole boatload of food sensitivities that we were working on. I had a massive E. coli infection in my gut that we were working on. But between the ketogenic diet for 6 weeks, then we added the methylated B vitamins for another 6 weeks. At the end of that 6 weeks, Dr. Naiman said to me, you can come off your lamotrigine. And I was too chicken to do that because I'd run out of it before, and that had almost ended up me dying. So I said, I'm not game to go cold turkey, but we took it down. So we halved the dose and waited to see what happened. And then we halved the dose. And then, so over a couple of weeks, we got me off the lamotrigine. That was 3.5 years ago. I've been completely unmedicated since then. And I've had 0 symptoms of bipolar in that same 3.5 year period. So it was
amazing. Were you still working as a chef at this time?
No, in fact, I
Okay.
haven't worked as a pastry chef for a very, very long time, but so during that time, I did a dull job in corporate America. And then on the side, I was doing the recipe development, writing cookbooks for keto, podcasts, and all that other stuff. But that back then was a side thing.
Okay.
But I was, yes, working in corporate America at that time while all of this was going on. I must actually, you've given me the opportunity to give a shout out to my last boss in my corporate America life. Was absolutely amazing, and he made it possible. He allowed me, when I fired everybody and said I'm going to figure this out, he actually allowed me to work from home 100% of the time for 7 months.
Wow.
While I was going through this process of figuring out what it was that was causing all this, which made it much easier. So on days when I couldn't perform, I didn't have to drag myself into the office. So I did have an incredible human being as a boss who facilitated me being able to do that work. And, I went and got all the tests done. I had time off for that and so on and so forth. But yes, I worked through that whole period.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Cause I was going to ask, what was it like but I guess I can still ask the question. I mean, you've given so much of your life to being a pastry chef and a chocolatier, and here you were faced with a diet that said, hey, no sugar, no grains. What was going through your head when that happened?
It's kind of funny when you think about it. It's kind of, ironic that the things that I had to stay away from or I now can't eat are what I built my original career on, which is just, but it's standing me, it's almost like the universe had kind of lined all this up, because what I learned from being at the National Bakery School and what I learned through all that time is now what is making me so successful in creating all of the keto things that I'm doing now, because I understand the science. I know how to do it professionally with the old ingredients, which is making it much easier for me to do it in the keto world. But it also means that I can explain the why, which is the part you loved about my kitchen podcast, exactly. Was that I can explain the science behind it, which I don't think there's anybody else out there that and not through any fault of their own, but I've been trained in that. So it's actually like the universe had all this planned and gave me the knowledge so that I could translate that when I needed to into the keto space.
Yeah, I think so. Because that was, when I was first listening to those podcasts, I just thought, oh, man, this is someone who's talking about food in a way that I've never heard someone talk about food in the ketogenic sphere. Some of the things that you were saying, I thought, oh, that's someone who has an understanding of what's going on that's a little deeper than my understanding, which is just, kind of throw everything in a bowl and cook it for a while and it'll taste good.
Woohoo.
And yeah, I'm pretty, like, I don't care deeply about, food tasting awesome or things be light and fluffy. I want things to be palatable, but I'm not the scientist that's in my kitchen for hours at a time trying to create the perfect recipe. For me,
and that's honestly, fine. Some people are, and some people aren't. And my role is to try and do something helpful and useful for all of the people, right? The people who love to cook and don't want to give that up and do want to spend hours creating complicated things. I want to help them with that. But I also recognize that a lot of people either don't have the inclination and or they don't have the time. And so I want to make recipes that are super simple but super delicious, because we all know that for the majority of people, if it doesn't taste good, they're not going to stick to it. Right. And we need them to stick to it because we care about their health. Mm-hmm. So I use my skills to make super delicious food that anybody can do, even someone who's never been in the kitchen before. and make it cheap and fast and simple. So I'm kind of trying to cover all the bases here.
That's what I was going to say, that, having said all that about not wanting to spend time in the kitchen, your ice cream recipes, especially, like those are my go-to. And I want ice cream. I'll pull one of those out, and they're better than, every once in a while I get like a pint of Halo Top or something. It's pretty low carb, but it's also,
it doesn't taste like mine.
I was going to say, it's also very easy to make the stuff that you make, and it's
and it is, that's a great example, is that most people, well, a lot of people might go, wow, you make your own ice cream, wow, and they're intimidated by the thought of how hard it is.
Yeah,
it's not hard. I developed the recipes so that they would be super simple, so that anybody can make them and make ice cream that tastes better than Ben & Jerry's, but it's keto. Exactly. And so a lot of people have been truly empowered in the kitchen because they're now making these amazing things that they never imagined they'd ever be able to make successfully. Yeah. And they're finding out that it's nowhere near as hard as they thought it was. So, and they're staying keto because, hey, I can still eat ice cream.
Exactly. So what's going to happen here, listeners, just so you know, is I very unwisely booked someone behind Carrie that I have to interview next, and because I want to pick her brain about food specifically. And
I would love you to pick my brain about food.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. But we're going to do that in a separate episode.
Okay.
So we're gonna definitely have you back on, but before I get done with you, I want to go back to you've talked to Ted Naiman, you've fixed all these things, you're off of your medication, you're seeing your mental health come back, and what did that, number one, what did that feel like? What was going through your head when you were starting to see some of these clouds lift? And second of all, just to get back to like your parents and your brother and all that, do they know who you are now? I mean, have they seen you? Do they see the difference? What's happening?
So it's still, even after 3.5 years, it's still weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good, but I spent a lot of time waiting for the other shoe to drop. I've like because it was so, and to try and be clear in describing it, I think differently now. My brain simply does not work the same way that it used to. And I'm an awkward cuss, and I have tried to make myself depressed because that's just, I like to test things out. Right. I've tried to make myself depressed and I can't. So that's why I say my brain literally doesn't work the same as it used to. I can't make myself depressed if I tried. That's awesome. So it's been a radical change, and to be honest, even 3.5 years in, I'm still getting used to the fact that there isn't going to be a trough of depression coming, because that I spent my life with this, okay, it's coming, I don't know when, and I don't know how bad it's going to be, but I know it's coming, and you're always waiting for that. I'm still getting used to thinking, oh, I don't have to wait for that anymore, I don't have to plan for that anymore, I don't have to like make strategies for that anymore. I just don't think the same way, and it's magical, and I can't even begin to describe to you how freeing it is, how different my life is now, because I can feel joy. I have joy now, and I don't have to plan, and I don't have to fake it out in the world anymore, because I'm not depressed, so I don't have to like perform to hide what's really going on with me. I can just be me, and so it's not exhausting to live anymore, because I'm not trying to hide this dark depression from people because I don't want to be judged. I don't have to do that anymore. Because I don't have the depression, so nobody's judging me for it, and I don't have to kind of try and hide that. It's just, it's not exhausting. I can be who I am, and I have joy, and I'm no longer waiting or planning or trying to kind of maneuver life around these like black holes of depression that used to hit with no warning. I have a completely different life.
I love it.
It's
I love
magical.
that. That's amazing. That is amazing. That is amazing.
And I want, the reason I talk about this out loud so much and that I don't care about anyone knowing is that I want as many people as possible to take this path for themselves, and their symptoms may not be the same as mine and their resolution may not be the same as mine, but I absolutely believe that we can figure out what is causing our mental symptoms and we can find the root cause. We don't have to live with clinical depression or ADHD or all these other mental health problems that we're plagued with. There's a way, and I want everybody to experience the joy and then the freedom from emotional exhaustion that I have now. And that's why I talk so openly about it. I mean, I literally don't care what people think, because I'm free, and I want as many people as it possible to experience that.
That's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So we're going to cut this off now, and I'm going to have you back on. But if my listeners would like to find out more about you, follow you, get your recipes, all that good stuff, how can they do all that? So
really the best place to go is carriebrown.com. That's CarrieBrown. And if you go, there's across the top, there's a tab called About, and if you click on that, there's a Where to Find Me page, and that will give you direct links to all the things, the Facebook, the groups. We have a great Keto Kitchen Facebook group. It'll take you to my Twitter, my YouTubes, my Instagrams, my all the things. And carriebrown.com is also where I post all my delicious keto recipes. So that will be the best place to start.
Perfect. All right, Carrie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure, and I'm very, very grateful for the airtime in order to help some fellow men and women.
All right, I appreciate it. And guys, hold on. We'll be right back with some more information.